Hello and welcome in, everybody. I've got a little bit of spice here for you today. I had a rank 1 Among Us sitting in my storage for quite a while and decided it was time to put a little bit of work in with it. So I decided to build a team around the Among Us for the Open Great League. I decided to go with the traditional ABB style team. So we have Among Us as the safe swap, Venusaur as our closer, and then with those two in the back, I realized that we needed something that was going to cover the flying types, the ice types. We would need something that would help us a lot with the steals that we would have trouble hitting otherwise. So we ended up with the Magcargo in the lead. And the team actually worked out pretty well. We end up going on a nice 7-3 run here over 2 sets. And the Among Us honestly put in quite a bit of work. It has a lot more bulk to it than you would normally expect. The only thing that really holds it back is its moveset. Feint Attack is not an incredible fast move, and it doesn't really have a great bait move. So we were running Feint Attack, Grass Knot, and Sludge Bomb, and it did enough work that we were able to pull out quite a bit of successful sets with it. And we're going to go ahead and jump into a couple of sets and show you guys what it can do. But these will be the first sets that I've ever shoutcasted for myself, so bear with me, and feel free to leave a little constructive criticism below. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and check out these battles. Alright, jumping into this first battle, we have Magcargo into Obstagoon, which is not a great lead for us because of that super effective counter damage. So we get to safe swap the Among Us here and are met by the Talonflame. This is again a tough matchup for us, but at least we're keeping this away from our Venusaur. So we're going to go ahead and no-shield this Flame Charge because we don't want to shield up in a losing matchup, and Among Us is actually able to tank that fairly well, and it'll allow us to get to this Sludge Bomb, and as you'll see, the Feint Attack damage plus the Sludge Bomb damage really starts to add up on this Talonflame. We're going to go ahead and go down here, but this puts this Talonflame into Incinerate downrange for our Magcargo, and since we resist all of their charge moves, we're really not worried about anything coming through here. So we're going to let this go. We tank that Brave Bird fairly well, and we're going to be able to leave with an Overheat, which we then immediately throw at this Obstagoon to pressure that shield. The opponent's actually going to no-shield though, so we get some big damage on the Obstagoon, and we are able to switch in our Venusaur. Opponent decides to stay in here and throw a move, which makes me think that they might be weak to the Venusaur in back. We still don't want to shield the first because they do have that Night/Boost chance on the Obstagoon. We're going to go ahead and try to get this shield out of our opponent with the Frenzy Plant, and since we see that shield come up, at this point we know for sure that whatever is in back doesn't want to see this Venusaur. So we're going to go ahead and shield up and look to farm down here, and sure enough, it's an Azumarill in back. So at this point, all we have to do is make sure we are throwing our Frenzy Plants on good timing, and we will definitely be able to make it to 3 Frenzy Plants with the energy advantage that we have before they're going to be able to get to these 2 Ice Beams. So we see this Ice Beam come through here, we're going to go ahead and shield it up, and we will do 4 Vine Whips to make sure we're throwing on good timing to give them as little energy as possible, and then we will get off this Frenzy Plant, and then we can do 1 more Vine Whip, throw in the middle of their bubble so that there's no way they could catch, and then get off this last Frenzy Plant, and then that Obstagoon is in farm down range, and that is win number 1 for the Among Us team, despite being hard countered in the lead and hard countered in the swap. In game 2, we have another horrible lead with the Magcargo into Politoed, so we're going to immediately safe swap into the Among Us again, and opponent isn't sure what to do, so we're going to be able to get a little bit of an energy advantage, and they meet us with a Charmer, which is not a good answer for a poison type. Our Feint Attacks may be resisted, but these Sludge Bombs are going to really hit hard. So we're able to get that first shield with the Among Us, and as you can see, we're still fairly healthy. We make it to the second Sludge Bomb with over half health, so we're going to get this second shield out of our opponent or win switch here, and opponent goes down 2 shields. So at this point, because of the slow energy generation of Charm, we can safely shield this up, and we will make it to a 3rd Sludge Bomb before they can make it to another move. The question is, how much does a Sludge Bomb really do to a Charmer from an Among Us? And we get to find out the answer here is quite a bit. So Among Us is able to get a shield advantage and switch advantage into an Alolan Ninetales. So this is massive. We're going to be able to come in with the Magcargo here, and Magcargo is going to absolutely dominate this Alolan Ninetales. And up a shield, our Venusaur is going to have a great matchup against the Politoed. So the Among Us was able to win a switch and shield advantage in an incredibly important matchup. So from here, we can just go straight for this Frenzy Plant. This Frenzy Plant will go ahead and take the Politoed out, and our opponent actually ends up force closing the app here. So we will have to sit through a little bit of loading times, but we are going to be able to close this match out here with the Venusaur. Even if the opponent stayed, they may have made it to a weather ball, but there was really no way out for them at this point. So we are able to pick up back-to-back wins with the Amoonguss. In this game, the Amoonguss even put in a ton of work. It was triple strong against our opponent's team, but it was still able to get us 2 shields and switch advantage, which is incredible. And now we get to go into the third match against Instinct Leader Spark, and we have Magcargo into wall rain. So this is kind of where we need to see the wall rain. So we opt to stay in here. We do outpace to the Stone Edge before they make it to their first EQ. So we're going to go ahead and throw this Stone Edge. This is why I prefer the Stone Edge over the Rock Tomb, because it applies a little bit more pressure. And now we have to make a big decision here. I do decide to shield up because this could definitely be the Earthquake, but it is just an Icicle Spear bait. So at this point, I'm confident our opponent is going to throw the EQ, and I still don't want to give up our Magcargo, so I go ahead and commit a shield here. And our opponent makes a wonderful catch onto their Nidoqueen of this Stone Edge. We're going to go ahead and fully bubble this and then safe swap into the Amoonguss after building up a little bit of energy, because we do want to come out of this with some energy. Our opponent actually opts to throw a Poison Fang, which is great for us, because now we don't have to worry about it. We can bank a move and get out into this Amoonguss. And this Nidoqueen is in Feint Attack downrange, so we are going to be able to farm this Nidoqueen all the way down and come out with loaded energy, because we can easily tank 2 Poison Fangs on our tanky Amoonguss. And so we will do just that, get ourselves fairly low, and look to have a move loaded to come out. Opponent brings in a Sableye. We're going to go ahead and go for Grass Knot, because Grass Knot is the more energy efficient move in neutral matchups. And from here, we can wait out our clock and come in with the Venusaur and look to apply some pressure on the Sableye. They do have a little bit of farm on us, and we would normally get to the moves at about the same time, but at this moment, we can survive a foul play, and our opponent can't survive a Frenzy Plant. So I know that there's 6 Shadow Claws away, so I'm going to overfarm a little bit here. We overfarm by 4, and get this Frenzy Plant off. This way, if they shield, if they no shield, we're going to be able to get to a Frenzy Plant here. And now this forces them to shield up the Wall Rain, otherwise it will just go down. And we know we have a Stone Edge banked on the Magcargo. Our opponent does get to a move, but they had just thrown all of their energy before switching out earlier, so it's only an Icicle Spear, and we are able to get off this Stone Edge to take out the Wall Rain and pick up our 3rd win with the Amoonguss team. So we go into round number 4, and we have Magcargo into Sableye, so a pretty neutral lead. I believe we opt to safe swap out because it is a neutral lead, and we are running an ABB team, so it is best for us to go ahead and safe swap. And we are met by the Nidoqueen. We've kind of seen how this plays out before. We know we can tank 2 Poison Fangs, even from the Shadow Nidoqueen, pretty comfortably. I'm going to look to overfarm a little bit with Feint Attacks and then get off a Grass Knot here. And our opponent opts to no shield, which actually puts them in Feint Attack downrange. So we could shield up and force switch here, but instead, I'm going to let the Amoonguss go down. Since we know we have that neutral lead, I can come in and get an entire Incinerate here for 2 Poison Jabs, because they won't get to a move, and this is a lot of free energy for our Magcargo, which is really going to help us out later on. So I'm going to go ahead and build up and fire off the Stone Edge here, just in case we opt to stay in. An opponent does shield up the Stone Edge, so I'm going to go ahead and switch out to see what they may have in back. But our opponent doesn't swap, and they go ahead and commit some energy to our Sableye, so I decide to commit a shield ourselves. And our opponent's still staying in, which means that this Venusaur probably has play against whatever is in the back. And we see that they continue to stay in here. We are going to get off a Frenzy Plant here, but we will get outpaced to the next move because it only takes them 5 Shadow Claws to get to the 3rd foul play. So they will get there 1 before we make it to this Frenzy Plant. We are going to have to shield up because I do assume that our Venusaur has play against whatever's in back. And we are going to go ahead and fire this off because the Shadow Claws are starting to add up. We're able to take out the Sableye, and in comes a Medicham, and I make a critical mistake there. I am almost positive that if I stay in, we would be able to make it to a Frenzy Plant and CMP tie them to a pup, and that Frenzy Plant would have been a very important amount of damage, because now that they are ramped up, we are not going to be able to survive those counters. Magcargo's Overheat is not quite enough, and we are going to go down to this move here. Had we gotten that Frenzy Plant off before switching out on the Venusaur, which would have been close, I think we could potentially come out with a win in that matchup. But that is our first loss with the Amoonguss team. But we go into the 5th match of the set, and we get an incredible lead here with the Magcargo into the Galvantula. Opponent immediately swaps into the Sableye, and we're staying in and building up some energy. We're going to go for the overheat and dip because we don't really have a hard answer to the Sableye. We're not too worried about the health on our Magcargo, so we are going to let this foul play go because Magcargo will do well into that Galvantula regardless. And then we're going to fire off this overheat, get a shield advantage, and switch into the Amoonguss. And we know Amoonguss is very tanky, so we're not too worried about shielding up this first foul play here either. We're going to go ahead and let this go, and look to keep building up some energy. We're going to throw right before they get to their 3rd foul play. We do shield up this 2nd foul play. We overfarmed a little too much, but now we're going to commit to throwing before their 3rd foul play. But the opponent actually opts to switch out, so we're going to go ahead and Sludge Bomb this Galvantula. Our opponent only has 1 shield. They're not going to give it up there. We can do 1 more feint attack and get off another Sludge Bomb here. And then our opponent just fully sacks the Gal. So we're able to take the Galvantula out. And then they're going to come in with the Sableye. And at this point, we can get the Sableye pretty low with these feint attacks. They are going to be able to farm us all the way down, but they're in a range where 1 Incinerate will take them out. So we come in with the Magcargo, we get through the 1 Incinerate, and we're going to shield up this foul play knowing that the Sableye is going to go down to that Incinerate. And in comes a Swampert. Unfortunately, I did throw 1 Incinerate, which is going to give them 2 free mud shots and make this a little bit closer than we would like. But I know at this point our win condition is to commit to the fast move down. We're not going to make it to 2 Frenzy Plants in time, and we're not going to get to a move on that Magcargo, so we just need to commit to full fast moves here. And they are going to take us out with this Hydro. We need to take them out in 2 Incinerates, and just as they get to their last mud shot, Magcargo is able to farm down, and we pick up a beautiful 4-1 with the Amoonguss in our first set. As you can see there, it was the straight 4-1, so an incredible set there. And we go straight into the 2nd set. We get a horrible lead with the Scrafty, so we are going to safe swap into the Amoonguss. And the Amoonguss is going to be met by a Skarmory. This is a very, very hard counter to the Amoonguss. They are looking to farm up a ton of energy, but the good news is the energy won't really have anywhere to go into our Magcargo because the Magcargo resists all of the moves from Skarmory, and we will most likely be able to incinerate it down very comfortably. We are going to get to a 2nd Grass Knot here to put in some chip damage on the Skarmory. But realistically, it may have been best just to not throw that to allow our Magcargo to get even more farm than it did. So we're going to wait out our switch clock here and then come in with the Magcargo. Our opponent throws energy immediately, which is fine. But they do opt to go for the Brave Bird here, which will cause 1 Incinerate to KO. We get a little bit of a weird visual glitch there. So we see an Altaria that didn't actually come in, and then we see the Scrafty come in. We know that they're just going to go for the pup, so we will no shield there. And then we're going to go for the Overheat and switch into our Venusaur and hope that our Venusaur has play against whatever is left in back. Opponent is staying in here, and this could be a boosted foul play, which would do quite a bit of damage, so we are going to opt to shield up. Opponent does go for the pup bait, though, but we do finish farming the Scrafty down. And then we blind throw a Frenzy here, which is probably not a smart play. It's not like anything is exactly going to take us out when it comes in, so it would have definitely been safer to build up some energy and see what came in before we threw our move. But it does end up being an Altaria, and we do get a shield out of it, so that is good for us still. We are able to fire off a Sludge Bomb there and get some good damage off on our opponent. We will have to shield the Sky Attack because the Sky Attack would KO. And we are going to look to get to this Sludge Bomb to get their last shield. And we have to hope that the Magcargo has enough health left to get to 1 Stone Edge to finish off the Altaria. But the Dragon Breaths are just a little bit too much for us to handle. And the Magcargo does go down. And the Altaria leaves with a Sky Attack to finish off the Venusaur. The Venusaur wouldn't have been able to get to a move anyway. So unfortunately, we do start this set off with a loss. But we jump straight into the next game, where we are met by another counter user in the lead. So again, this is a bad matchup for us, so we're going to save swap straight into the Amoonguss. Opponent stays in for quite a while. They do have super effective Ice Punch here, so this could do quite a bit of damage. And this may be a misplay to shield, because we know we can tank it, and they're most likely going to switch something in. And they do end up switching in a Mandibuzz. So again, not a great matchup for us, but they are running Snarl, and Aerial Ace is not a fantastic move, so we are going to be able to apply a lot of pressure with these Sludge Bombs, which is kind of nice. So we are going to look to spam out as many of these Sludge Bombs as we can, and really put some pressure on the health bar of this Mandibuzz. They will get to an Aerial Ace here, but we've established that Aerial Ace isn't a great move, and we are quite tanky, so we can survive that Aerial Ace even though we're already at half health. I'm not confident that we would have won CMP, so I opt to go for throwing on Good Timing instead of the CMP, and that may have been a mistake. I would have to check to see if we would win CMP there, but we end up going down to the Aerial Ace anyway, so it doesn't really change much. We do opt to come in with the Mag Cargo, and I'm going to look for a very aggressive farm down, because I believe we have to come out with energy in order to have a chance, since we will have this Mag Cargo aligned to that Metacham now. So we will tank 2 foul plays here, and look to farm all the way down. Opponent actually swaps out, though, so we're going to go ahead and go for this Overheat, and then look to switch. We do get a shield out of our opponent. We bring in the Venusaur. We know that they have super effective Ice Punch. I actually opt to no shield here, calling that it is an Ice Punch and not a Psychic, but my opponent goes straight for the Psychic, which is a great play by our opponent. If we shield up the Psychic, we are able to outpace to 2 Frenzies, even though they do have a slight energy lead, and that would give us a small chance here, depending on what is in the back. We will get up this Overheat to hopefully show us what is in the back, and it is a Registeel. So even if we shield up the Psychic, our Venusaur would not have been able to get through that Registeel and back, so just an unfortunate matchup for us. But we do pick up a great lead here in Game 3 with the Magcargo into the Skarmory. Opponent safe swaps the Vigoroth, and we meet them with the Amoonguss. They are going to be able to spam out these Body Slams, which will apply quite a bit of pressure, but the counter damage is resisted, and we are pretty bulky, so we're not too worried about being countered down. We are looking to overfarm just a tad here, and then we are going to look to fire off a move. I believe I do go for the Sludge Bomb here, but it would have been better to go for the Grass Knot, as both are neutral and Grass Knot is a higher damaging move. So had I gone for the Grass Knot, it would have made this farm down a little bit more comfortable, but at this point, I'm confident that I can shield up once and Feint Attack all the way down, coming out with a move and preserving a Switch, since we know that Switch is very important, with our Magcargo really walling this Skarmory and our Venusaur getting walled by this Skarmory. So we do opt to maintain Switch there. And then we see a Scrafty in back, so we are going to align our Venusaur to the Scrafty, and this is still a little tough. I opt to no-shield the first in case they go for a Pup Bait, but the opponent does go straight for the Foul Play, so that is some good damage landing on our Venusaur. We are going to go for this Frenzy Plant to start applying some pressure to our opponent here, and we do get that first shield out of our opponent, and here I make a big call. We're going to call that this is a Pup because we do still have a shield up, and opponent does go for the Pup, which will allow us to save our shield and reach this Frenzy Plant. This Frenzy will be getting their last shield, and they will farm us down, but we have them pretty low at this point. So we throw one Incinerate, and I'm going to shield this, because a Foul Play would do a lot more than anything that Skarmory can throw at us. And since they did throw the Foul Play, I feel comfortable over-farming by 1. And we do go for the Stone Edge here. Even though Stone Edge is resisted, we don't want to go for the Overheat and drop our attack, because we know we have to take out this Skarmory still. So we go for the Stone Edge. Luckily it's enough, and then we are able to get to this Overheat on the Skarmory and take it out for a solid win. Thankfully, we were able to preserve Switch with the Amoonguss yet again. And now we have Magcargo into Deoxys, so not a great lead as these counters would be doing super effective damage, but the Psycho Boost also threatens our entire backline. We do opt to swap in the Amoonguss, and our opponent meets us with a Shadow Wall Rain. They do go for the Icicle Spear, but Amoonguss is quite bulky, so we're going to let this go. We're looking now to just get shield advantage. So, we go for this Grass Knot, expecting a shield here. This will give us a 1 shield advantage, but our opponent does not respect the Amoonguss, and Grass Knot lands, one-shotting the Shadow Wall Rain, and we are now able to flip Switch with the Amoonguss. They do get a big counter down, which is not great since we have established the Psycho Boost will threaten us, but we opt to come in with the Venusaur here, and we will give up a shield because one Psycho Boost would do big damage and debuff themselves, but our opponent Thunderbolt baits us, which is a fantastic bait by our opponent. We are going to get to this Frenzy Plant before they fire off another move though, which is fantastic for us. We're going to be able to start putting some pressure on their shields back, and they do opt to shield. I expect this to be the Psycho Boost now, so I am comfortable shielding this still, and it is the Psycho Boost. An opponent switches out into Ninetales, and we know that we hard wall the Ninetales with our Magcargo, so Switch ends up being so good for us here. I do fire off this Stone Edge immediately, just to go ahead and take this out or get their shield, and they do give up their last shield. We still are perfectly fine with any moves that we take here, so we can just tank this move and look to incinerate this all the way down, and this will let us come out with a move to throw. So we will go straight for this overheat, and I believe this overheat will do enough to take out the Deoxys, and thankfully take them out with some energy, because I believe they would have had a Psycho Boost had they made it out of that matchup, and really threatened our Venusaur, so that farm down ended up being crucial. Now we get Magcargo into Licky Licky. This is a pretty neutral matchup, so we're going to play it out for a little bit and then look to eventually safe swap into our Amoonguss. So I look to go for the overheat and dip, because that is kind of what I prefer to do in these neutral matchups. So I fire off this first overheat and then switch into the Amoonguss. I'm not really worried about any charge moves from this Licky Licky because we are quite bulky, and as you'll see, we tank the Shadow Ball like it's nothing. And our opponent brings in Trevenant, and you can see these feint attacks are adding up very quickly on the Trevenant. So we are putting a lot of pressure on, and we're able to get a shield with that Sludge Bomb, which is fantastic. At this point, we have shield advantage, we have everything that we want out of this. I don't feel the need to shield, and our opponent actually goes for a Seed Bomb bait, which isn't enough. And from here, they get a little greedy and try to commit to the Shadow Claw down, and Amoonguss is going to be able to survive with all of that bulk and take out the Trevenant with a Sludge Bomb. So we get shield and energy advantage out of the Amoonguss, and then we get to align our Venusaur to this Jellicent, and we know that the Licky Licky is incredibly low, so we are just going to have that win in the bag, up a shield, and that is another positive set for the Amoonguss team. As you see, we can go 3-2 there in that last set. All in all, the Amoonguss did incredibly well. It did a lot better than I would have expected. Its bulk was really nice. It was able to flip switch for us on multiple occasions where you wouldn't really expect it to. And a lot of that comes down to the unexpected bulk and unexpected damage of the Amoonguss. And you can see a lot of times opponents were a little bit confused by us using something that was ranked 408th on PvPoke and something they're not very familiar with seeing. But this may not be the best team for climbing, but I had an absolute blast running it, and I really think the Amoonguss is a little bit better than you would think. If it does get some move reworks, whether it be getting a better bait move or a faster charging fast move in the future, I think Amoonguss could actually become viable in the meta. So it's something to keep an eye on. Maybe we get a good comm day for it in the future, maybe we don't, but it's always fun to think about. In the meantime, it is a great spice pick to use. I look forward to using it again in some spicy drafts in the future. But if you guys are looking for a more serious team for climbing, be sure to hit that subscribe button and keep around, because I have a very strong meta team that I've been running in the Open Great League that has run 6 positive sets in a row so far and is still rolling. So keep an eye out for that video tomorrow for a good climbing team for the Open Great League. And if you guys like the video, I would really appreciate if you leave a like, and I'm always open to constructive criticism in the comments. But other than that, I hope you all have a great day, a great rest of your weekend, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Catch you later.